McDowell believed that he was alleviating the misery his victims had, how God intended him to, but then says he was possessed by the devil. Welcome to the Time Capsule. I'm your host, Addie Lawton. I'm welcomed here with Peyton Stan.
What's up, everybody?
It is March 16th, and we are Miss Williams' room. We are talking about a very strange case today, a man named Samuel McDowell. Have you ever heard of Samuel McDowell?
I have not, but it sounds extremely intriguing to learn.
Samuel was born on June 7, 1940, in Reynolds, Georgia. Samuel McDowell changed his name to Sam Little. His father was Paul McDowell. His mother was Betsy May Little. His mother was a teenage prostitute and abandoned him, authorities say, during his mother's time in prison. He was born. He was raised by his grandmother, Fannie Mae McDowell, in Lorain, Ohio. Sam had a fetish for women's necks that started in kindergarten when his kindergarten teacher touched her neck. During school, he was a pretty normal student up until high school. After he had dropped out of high school, he was arrested for theft, fraud, DUI, assault, armed robbery, rape, etc.
That was a very abrupt turnaround.
He was arrested 25 times over 11 states by 1975. During his free time in prison, he boxed. He was really good at it, but he decided not to pursue that career. Sam dated a woman named Lucy McDowell. They were arrested May 28, 1971, for robbing a gas station in Cleveland. Lucy was put in the same jail as Orlean Jean Dorsey. Lucy was going to testify against Little. Jean found Little and warned him about Lucy's testimony through the jail's walls. The testimony did happen and Lucy did testify against Little, but was found not guilty. After the testimony, Sam had a long-term relationship with Jean. She was 30 years older than Sam. Since Jean was considered a master shoplifter, she supported them. In 1988, Jean died of a brain hemorrhage. Okay, let's recap for a second.
I can't believe Lucy betrayed Sam like that. Like, after robbing a gas station and then testifying against him, I feel like that's really messed up. I also find it fascinating that Jean was able to talk to Sam on the other side of the walls. How flimsy did the walls have to be to do that?
Or maybe she dug a hole into the walls and they're pretty thin.
Well, maybe.
Or there was a hole.
Who knows? I mean, honestly, at this point, I think it's just kind of messed up that you double-cross your boyfriend like that. So I heard it was rumored that he saw Dorsey as a surrogate mother since his mother and grandmother passed away.
It's honestly kind of odd that he thinks that, especially since they're dating, and he sees her as a mother while they're dating.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it just seems kind of, backwards to date somebody and then see them as a really adult figure for how old he was, which I believe at that time he was about, 20 something?
I think so.
And she was about 30 years older than him.
Yeah, she was 30 years older.
It's definitely kind of a little messed up, but...
His murders went undetected, and one of the reasons were that his victims were on the fringe of society.
So the fringe of society usually means, people of, homeless women, drug addicts, and, sex workers in them.
Yeah, those were the people he targeted.
But I find it fascinating that it took, since we had DNA testing at that time, I guess it would be a little difficult to figure out who was there because, with specifically drug addicts, there's probably multiple people going in and out of those places and, interacting with those people. So I guess it would be kind of confusing. But at the same time, all of his DNA was there in the process.
Yeah, many of them were of color and many of them were unidentified, and they were tallied up to natural causes or accidents like drug overdoses.
Honestly, at that point, it kind of seems messed up to, make it seem that way, as if the person went out in a really bad way, but even though they were murdered. But, I mean, I guess in his claim, that's why probably he got away with it so many times, just to get away from his crimes. But how do you feel no guilt from that? Just, even if somebody is on the fringe of society, it just doesn't seem right just to kill somebody for, I guess, the enjoyment out of it. So,
he was also trying to bring peace to their misery. Drug overdoses don't always look the same, and if it was natural causes, I don't feel like they would be unable to be identified.
True. I mean, I guess maybe the way he made it look, because different drugs have different, attributes, like...
Exactly, so they all wouldn't look the same, and you can't tell me that
True.
all 93 people were doing the same drugs.
True, because wasn't there 93 claims and only like 60 of them were actually identified?
Yeah.
That he did. Well, let's see what more.
One of his famous quotes was, "I live in my mind now with my babies and my drawings." And when he was talking about babies, he was referring to his victims.
I find that kind of disturbing and really uneasy, because how would you be able to refer to what people said, or what he said specifically, 93 claims by the FBI that he said? I heard he also had a photographic memory, when he was drawing his victims on, coloring sheets in prison, whenever the FBI wanted to see if they can actually remember all of the victims. So I heard that, he was part of kind of helping out, trying to figure out where all those people were. And I also heard that he, when he was drawing them, he knew the time, date, where, and how he, did it to them. So.
Yeah, it was on every picture he drew. And it helped with the cases, which is another reason why I don't understand why they were so long until they figured out it was him.
Maybe they needed more evidence to convict him. Maybe that's a reason.
Maybe.
All right.
And the way Sam went about killing his victims was he punched them till they were knocked out and strangled them to death.
It's kind of messed up. But, I guess in reality they kind of didn't feel anything, I guess you can think. But then again, they do. I don't know. I don't know how it works, so I'm not 100%. So I heard they called him, the LAPD called him the choke and stroke killer, which I find also extremely disturbing, because I heard he mutilated the bodies after he killed them.
That is pretty insincere to their families, too.
That's true. Even if, like I said, they were on the fringe of society, they're still people, and even...
with families.
People, yeah. But apart from that...
And Sam's DNA was found and connected to 3 different homicides in California between 1987 and 1989. And the victims were Caroline Elfort, Guadalupe Dorta, and Audrey Nelson Everett. Even though he was found not guilty, he ended up confessing to multiple strangulation murders and spanned across 19 states between 1970 and 2005. A total of 93 crimes. A mass serial killer was arrested in 2012 for murdering the 3 California women in the late 1980s.
That's insane number compared to, all of the mass serial killers in the world. And that's what? Bigger than the 3 biggest ones, like Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, and John Wayne Gacy, which I find insane, because even though it was 93 claims to the crimes, it was still 60 of them were actually, figured out and convicted him of. So I find that absolutely disturbing and just outright outrageous, even if they were on the fringe of society. It doesn't even matter. But apart from that, I find that completely preposterous that it took them that long to figure out 93 or just the 60 of the claims from 1970 to 2005, which...
He wasn't even arrested until 2012.
Yeah, that's crazy. So,
that's 7 years later.
Yeah, that's insane.
He spent 10 years between this time of 2 murder convictions in 2014. He ended up being sentenced. He was sentenced to life without parole in 2014.
Yeah. I think in the whole end result of this entire situation that happened with all the people, I think it should have brought back this is just my opinion, the death sentence for that one, because that's a lot of people, just in general as a whole. But that's just my opinion. But I guess with life without parole, and he's just going to be in there forever, so in the end of the result, he kind of got what he deserved, so yeah.
Also, he was tested to 3 different homicides. Why wasn't he arrested and found guilty then?
I don't know. Maybe they had a lack of evidence. Which
his DNA was connecting to all
I-
three. He was convicted of them.
maybe some of the evidence was tampered with. Who knows? But at the end of the day, he was still caught, and he was convicted of his crimes, and it's like that God sent him down to alleviate all of his victims' misery sinners were doing. So even though in the whole reality he was the actual sinner in this entire situation, you can't justify even if murdering somebody just because you think that you're helping them, and in reality you're actually making things worse than they actually seem to be.
Yeah.